All right, so we got a signal on Bitcoin that I really didn't want to see over the last 24 hours, and we've got to discuss it today because I think it does materially impact how we need to be approaching the market right now. You can see over the last 24 hours, a lot of altcoins have started to give back some of their gains after we did see Bitcoin make a short impulse to the upside. The Asia session, which has been notorious for heavy and aggressive selling, has sold off once again today. And it leaves us with the question, what do we do in the market right now? Is it time to buy? Should we be offloading now that alts are a little bit up on their floors technically compared to Friday week's liquidation event? Well, that's what we're going to discuss today. And I do have a full plan of action today and a full plan surrounding what I'm doing with my altcoins and my Bitcoin that I want to discuss with you in today's video. So hopefully this video helps you navigate what are relatively choppy waters in the market. And that's really all I'm trying to do on this channel, help you guys to the best of your abilities execute in what are difficult market conditions. Hopefully you did enjoy the podcast interview that I did with Henrik Zeberg yesterday. We went into macro, and I think it was a really interesting insight as to what we can expect to happen over the next 6, 12, and 18 months. Sometimes we do get caught up in the short-term stuff, so I think it's also good to give you the long-term stuff on this channel. So let me know in the comments if you guys did enjoy that. The feedback was great, and we'll continue to do it if you like it, because yeah, these videos are a bit shorter term. Like the plan I'm about to talk to you today is really only relevant for the next week and a bit in terms of positioning right now, which is great. But it's also great to have contrast on the channel and give you guys opinions across different time frames, of course, because we have traders here, we have investors here, we have active investors, which I would, consider myself an active investor. Yes, I'm taking swing trades. Yes, I am regularly managing my portfolio based on the charts, but fundamentally, I wouldn't consider myself like a day trader, right? That's also why we started the Crypto Edge channel, which you guys have probably seen recently, which is my second channel for, more market framework-based commentary that, isn't related to the day-to-day stuff. But without further ado, let's just get into Bitcoin now, and I'll explain to you why we got a signal that I didn't really like, and then I'll tell you exactly what we're going to do about it and how I'm managing my portfolio and what my focus is in the market at the moment. So the signal that we got that I wasn't a big fan of was the fact that we had a confirmed head and shoulders pattern on Bitcoin. So you can see this is the first shoulder, this is the head, this is the second shoulder, so that rejection off the 116K zone, and then we've had a retest of the channel low, basically the wick low from last Friday's liquidation event. So Bitcoin putting in this head and shoulders to me does continue to assert that this was a distributive pattern, so a bearish market pattern. What we did need to see in the market in order to have a confirmed reversal pattern was a break and a hold above 116K. This level here, which we rejected off. Very, very important if Bitcoin is going to gun for all-time highs again, that we do reclaim the 116 zone. This has been the key level that we failed to get above once. We ended up testing channel low. We rallied above. We ended up making a triple top pattern on the daily chart here. We went back down. I was hoping we get a reclaim here, but we didn't. We got a rejection, and this is now where the market needs to sort itself out. So obviously, if Bitcoin can get back above 116K, let's say it fakes out here and it reclaims above this level, then there's a high probability we're going to test highs. But given the fact that we continuously reject off this level, and given the fact that this is a confirmed head and shoulders and we have a lower high here, my bias is now that we're going to go to 100K first before all-time highs, because, that is just what the charts are telling us. And as investors, we always have to stay level-headed. We need to look at the PA, we need to look at the trends, and we need to look at what the charts are telling us, and then we need to react accordingly. I was asked in the Discord yesterday, Mars, would you be buying altcoins right now? And it's hard for me to recommend buying altcoins when we are currently in a price action pattern like this. You'd basically be buying altcoins in the middle of a choppy range. What I much prefer to do is buy altcoins when you have confluence on Bitcoin at major support. So we know that there's major support between 100 and 102K in this level here. This is a level where I would love to add some altcoins, and we'll discuss what they are later in the video. Conversely, if we did get a flip of 116, I would love to add some altcoins here, because I think the chances of us pushing for a new all-time high are quite high. And we know there can be a lot of business done in the swing trading department between 115 and 126K. That's a 10% swing on Bitcoin, but it's probably going to be a 20% swing on many altcoins. I wouldn't want to miss out on that trade. But doing business in no man's land, I think, becomes extremely difficult for Bitcoin. On the lower timeframes, Paradise also posted this chart in the Mars High Club Discord. He said that the level he was looking at for a potential bounce on the H4 was 106 to 107. That pattern is actually almost about to play out, so there could be a potential bounce off the channel low here. We've been in this channel remarkably since July. I know we've been deviating either side, but this is the trend. So you could potentially look at taking a bounce play back to the channel high or back to the mid-range of the channel, but these are short-term trades that we're posting in the Discord. I don't think you would want to mess around with altcoins too much, to take a tiny trade. What is that from the bottom of the range to the range high? It's like 5%, and it's a very minute range. So that's a setup you can look at taking if you are an intraday trader. Personally, I'm waiting for the two big levels, either a reclaim of 116 or a retest of 100. The 100K level also has a lot of confluence on the weekly, because if you go into the weekly, we have the money noodle, which is the indicator we use in the Miles High Club, at the 100K level. That's the lower bound, and there's confluence there. This has also been a previous bull market support test zone. We also have confluence with the 200 daily moving average in that zone as well. So when it comes to bidding altcoins, this is a level that I would love to bid, and I would honestly be pretty willing to cut quite quickly below, because for me, if we started to break down below and flirt with like 98, 97K, that would spell danger in my opinion. If anything, I'll be completely transparent with you. I've probably gone more risk off over the last few days. Not too aggressively, but, just trimming positions I'm not a big fan of, or, just waiting down in certain positions and trying to recoup even more stable coins to push me closer to 55, 60% cash. Because the market looks a bit shaky, and I want to make sure I have extra firepower to actually buy back in if the market does go lower. You might be asking, oh, Miles, what if you don't get your entries on alts, at 100K, and we end up going to all-time highs right now? Well, that's fine, because what I'll essentially look at doing is trading this 116K zone. So if we do end up forming a bullish reversal pattern, so, we have technically a higher low here. Let's say we come down, sweep, make a higher high, start to reverse, make two higher lows, and then reclaim above 116. There's a few entry signals for me to come back in on a reversal here, where I would potentially look at adding alts. I'm just going to need to play it, on the daily, on the 4-hourly chart to make sure that I'm positioned correctly in the market. So I don't think it's a huge problem if somehow we missed 100K and we come back up. I already have altcoin exposure to hedge against that. And, I'm happy to buy alts slightly higher if that means I get in on confirmation versus buying in no man's land. I think that's the thing with the market, right? You don't always need to time the lows. You don't always need to get the best price. What you do need to do in order to manage risk is make sure you're getting in with confirmation. Happy to buy a little bit higher if that's the case. The other thing is Bitcoin is likely going to lead the next run. We know, the trigger for Ethereum running and altcoins running is Bitcoin leading. So if Bitcoin is going to lead the next run, then actually the best risk reward in my opinion, and this is also evidenced through the Bitcoin dominance chart, is probably to be more heavily concentrated in Bitcoin and then make a rotation later. So I feel like even if Bitcoin goes to all-time highs, there's going to be ample time to rotate into alts. I don't think alts are going to absolutely fly as Bitcoin goes from 111 to 120. I think actually that rotation back into alts is when you'll see the serious price action on altcoins. So if anything, given the fact that dominance looks quite strong, we've actually had a money noodle flip on the daily for dominance. It keeps grinding upwards. You have higher highs and higher lows. I would actually want to concentrate more of my portfolio in Bitcoin, or at the very least, if I'm opening new trades, I'd rather probably long Bitcoin than long many alts right now. Now, there are a few exceptions. We'll talk about a few later in the show. A few that I've been speaking about recently. Obviously, BNB and MNT, like these exchange coins have had relative strength. There's some narratives like Tau that have relative strength right now, but, by and large, the majority of the altcoin market doesn't. And, you just have to be realistic about that. And then, it begs the question, if you did want to long the market, let's say we did, hit one of my buy scenarios that we just discussed, is it better to go into altcoins or is it better to go into a low leverage Bitcoin trade? Well, I'm not advocating for high leverage, especially what we saw, a couple of weeks ago. However, Bitcoin wasn't that affected by that event. And I do think low leverage longing Bitcoin is pretty similar to buying altcoins, and you get exposure to the asset, which is actually leading the market, which is Bitcoin. Personally, I'm going to stick to mostly spot and a very low leverage Bitcoin trade, like a 3 to 4x, just to maximize capital efficiency. But obviously, if you don't lose leverage, it's safer if you stick to spot. Not going to deny that. It's just an option for people that want higher beta exposure to the market, but want to actually be in the coin with the most relative strength, which will be Bitcoin on the bounce. By the way, with all this chart stuff, I have been updating you guys in the Telegram every single day. So if you've been missing these market updates on the channel, because I've kind of dialed back my uploads, I only want to hit you with bangers here on the channel. So I haven't been forcing daily market updates. All the updates daily are dropping in the Telegram, so it's free. Make sure you drop in the description below. Obviously, Mars High Club is our premium offering with all of our 6 analysts and our mentorships. I have an AMA later today there. But if you just want short daily updates when I'm not able to make a YouTube video, come and join the Telegram, link in the description below. We do a full update, and when I can drop a voice message like last night and give you some more insight as to what I'm doing, that is a place where I can give you quick updates. Obviously, if something breaks, if Bitcoin crashes, if I want to go in or out of the market, it's hard for me to, spin up a YouTube video in a couple of hours, whereas I can, in 2 minutes, drop a voice message into Telegram. So check it out and come and join, because I did speak about this over the past few days, and I actually spoke about this rejection a few days ago at 116 as well. Asia session has definitely been bad for Bitcoin as well. This is not helping. There's lots of whales and OGs and long-term holders selling specifically in the Asia session. So this certainly hasn't helped the market. Hoping this can start to reverse sometime soon, because US and Euro sessions have actually been okay. They've been net positive. If you look at cumulative return, they're still above 0, but the Asia session is -8. So basically, we'll climb up or we'll break even during Europe and US, and then Asia wakes up and then they start selling. So it's a little bit annoying. Just keep that in mind. I said this a few days ago, I believe. If you are trading the market, typically you're wanting to sell during the US session when the markets are performing better, and then buy during the Asia session when the markets are low. There's been lots of swing trading / intraday arbitrage opportunities getting in during the Asia session and then offloading during the US session. It's been the easiest way to make money over the past few weeks. It's something we've also been capitalizing on the Discord. If you look at a lot of our intraday swing trades, for example, this is Paradise's channel here, you can see he takes a lot of these intraday swing trades, and a lot of them have been following this setup. He's in the Asia-based time zone, being in Australia, so he's actually able to give you guys the right entries in the right time zone. And we have our Traders Hub and our questions channel, so you can actually interact with the analysts and talk to each other and get handheld through how to actually trade and open these setups. So that's been a great place to be. Despite the market being boring, there's always trading setups and opportunities happening, and that's one thing that you have to maximize during, boring periods for investors in the market. The last chart I want to show you before we get into the rest of the video and actually talk about some of the altcoins that I would be targeting if we did come down to 100K, or conversely, if we flip that 116 level, is the others BTC chart, because I'm seeing a lot of people charting total 3, but in reality, in crypto, your number one objective is to outperform Bitcoin. As I said before, if you can't pick an altcoin that's going to outperform Bitcoin, well, you're better off either just longing Bitcoin or even low leverage longing Bitcoin to get higher beta exposure to the market. So if your objective through altcoins is to get higher beta exposure to Bitcoin, then you better make sure your altcoins are actually outperforming Bitcoin. And as you can see in front of you, the vast majority of altcoins in the market at the moment aren't actually outperforming Bitcoin. And this is very obvious because others BTC is going down. So despite the propensity for a lot of traders to use total and total 3, they look great. You feel like you're telling a story showing the total chart. It's actually not showing the whole story. I mean, this is what total 3 looks like. It looks extremely bullish, but I'm sure a lot of your portfolios and my portfolio over the last few days doesn't look so bullish, and it's because it's not telling the full picture. This chart tells the full picture because it excludes the majors, it excludes the stable coins, and it actually shows you a real reflection of how altcoins are performing versus Bitcoin, and they are still in a downtrend. So, to give you a trigger to rotate heavier into altcoin, you would want to have a confirmed reversal or breakout on others BTC. There were signs that we were getting it over the past few months, but it has gotten rejected. And what you really don't want to see on this chart, and this would also be a potential de-risk indicator for me on altcoins, alongside the 100K level on Bitcoin, is this level here. There's a major support dating back all the way to December 2018 on others BTC that's recently held up, that we are probably going to come down and retest now. We do want to start to see a bit of a reaction in this zone. If not, I want to go even heavier into Bitcoin. As Benjamin Cowan says here, to those that keep calling for alt season, in order for alt season to happen, ETH needs to go to 5K and hold it as support. For ETH to go to 5K and hold it as support, it means Bitcoin needs to also go to all-time highs. The process of Bitcoin going to all-time highs would make BTC dominance go higher like it has all cycle, and I think that is what at least the trend is suggesting it wants to do right now. So the only way we get an alt season is for Bitcoin dominance to first go up as Bitcoin also goes to new highs. If that does not happen, then alt season also does not happen. So while the gurus sit out here and yap about Bitcoin dominance dropping and they shill their coins once again, just remember, in order to get what they want, they first have to be wrong again. This is actually not that controversial in my opinion. This is a concept I've been speaking about for the past few weeks. I mean, on my walk and talk on the beach the other night, if you watched that, I talked about this rotationary concept last week, the week before. We've talked about this concept. I think we all know Bitcoin has to make new highs for altcoins to start outperforming. Of course, in the meantime, you can have select alts outperforming. There's trading opportunities on alts. There's always, sectors of low caps which can pop up and individual trades which can, make you some money in the interim. But for overall, the sentiment in the market to improve, you are going to need Bitcoin to make a new high. So if you are in the altcoin market and you're investing in the altcoin market, the question you really should be asking yourself is Bitcoin going to make a new high, or was that the top? Now, I said last week, I think the probability of the Bitcoin top being in is close to 30 to 35%. That is my current assessment on the market. I know there are people out there, like if you watch Banter Fefe saying, I think it's closer to 60 to 70%. Taiki Maeda, who's on Steady Lads, he's also saying it's above 50%. We've had many other analysts like Ansem saying it's like, I don't know if he gave an exact percentage, but he said probabilistically it's in. I'm in the slight other camp. I'm similar to Ran and some others that think, we're closer to probably 30. I'm saying like around 35%. Trading is a probabilistic game. You can't speak in absolutes. You can't say, oh, there's no chance Bitcoin's put in a top, when on the weekly there is a chance. We've put in a top, and there is a chance that we could break below this level here and the 200-day MA and start to trend downwards. There is a chance that has happened. I just don't think that's the probability right now, given where the business cycle is. So I'm looking not just from a price action perspective and using, lines on a chart for, the only thesis in my trading. I'm also looking from a macro perspective. We spoke about it a lot yesterday. And one thing Henrik spoke about is, despite the fact there's a big crash coming, the last blow off leg for markets as the Fed injects liquidity into the economy and probably goes a little bit too heavy handed on the stimulus, that could be the trigger for the blow off in the market. And Bitcoin is a highly responsive asset to global liquidity and liquidity injections in the market overall. As Alex says here, he's long, and he's a macro analyst I really respect, by the way, his long Bitcoin thesis for late 2025 and early 2026 is not a gold catch-up trade. The thesis actually revolves around the Fed becoming irresponsibly dovish in 2026. This has been the case since Q2, when the idea of a Trump Fed started to float. If by March or April, Bitcoin is still not trending, then likely time to ditch it. Remember, the new Fed chair comes in May 2026, and his first FOMC will be June's, but the market has a tendency to front-run things. The catch-up idea is, in my opinion, hopium. If you don't know what the catch-up idea is about, it's pretty much the fact that gold's been on a big run, and typically after Bitcoin lags gold, it does catch up. Now, I think the catch-up idea in isolation this cycle doesn't make much sense, because for Bitcoin to reach parity with gold, it would take many big events over a multi-decade period for that to actually occur. So I don't think that's realistic this cycle. However, what I do believe in is the fact that the market is rotationary. Gold's been on a huge run. It's now showing signs of double topping. Potentially, you do get liquidity flowing out of gold and into equities, because equities have, although they've been in an uptrend, they've been not as hot because, as you can see here, gold is sucking up a lot of liquidity from the market. So Bitcoin and equities, which are more correlated to each other, have been stalling. So although the idea of a catch-up trade in isolation, I agree with Alex Kruger, doesn't make much sense. I think there could be a catch-up trade in the sense that gold will cool down and Bitcoin will see, its day in the sun. And that also aligns with the macro thesis of Alex, myself, of Henrik. So I do believe that will eventually lead to a new Bitcoin high. So my thesis, and why I think it's probabilistic that we hit a new high, is because of the macro situation. It's not purely rooted in technical analysis. However, I am using the technicals to verify levels where I can feel comfortable risking into the market, because then I have a clear invalidation to risk out of the market when I need to. And that's why I highlighted the two levels that I did earlier in the video. So in the meantime, until we get a clear buying signal on altcoins, what can you do now? Well, I actually think now is a fantastic time to start preparing your portfolio. So there may not be opportunities to buy or act every single day, maybe, just a little bit of rebalancing. But what you can do is start to develop your watch list, focusing on assets with strong cash flows. We're speaking about flows a lot over the past couple of weeks. Significant buybacks appeal to TradFi. For example, Alex points out BNB, MNT, ENA, AAVE, XPL, Pump, Hype, Syrup. I think a lot of these are good things to look into, but you want to start preparing your portfolio for that. If you want to go a step deeper, you can start to research the sectors which could introduce new hot waves for the lower cap altcoins heading over the next 1 to 2 quarters. Because when Bitcoin puts in a new high, I want to have some dart throw bets which could potentially outperform in the market. Remember, towards the end of a cycle, typically you want to dial down the risk in terms of the nominal amount of stable coins you have exposed to the market, and dial up the risk or move up the risk curve in terms of the nature of the assets that you are speculating on, aka putting less money into riskier assets instead of more money into less risky assets, or more money into more risky assets. So I'm very interested using that 20% of my portfolio that I use to have fun, spray and pray, chop in and out of the market a little bit more, and just degen a bit. I'm very interested in a few sectors right now to start either taking some of those bets, or at least, even if you're not buying today, at the very least, using this time when it's quiet to actually research and prepare my portfolio for when I get some entries. Because if I get an entry trigger and some of these low caps get hit, because low caps typically are more reflexive in the market, I can get in and look at some nice swing trades over the next 1 to 2 quarters. So we'll probably do a video later in the week or next week which dives deeper into some of the lower caps, but I wanted to give you some places to start looking in the meantime, and I've prepared a watch list for you today for you to actually go and research things a little bit further. There are a few narratives that I won't mention today that I've spoken about a lot. So, exchange coins with strong buybacks. I think a lot of DeFi coins fall into that category. Still very bullish on them. But today I wanted to highlight 2 verticals in particular, which could have some interesting lower cap plays that you can start researching. And also some, mid to large cap plays, which could perform well. The first narrative is prediction markets. I think prediction markets are going to be quite big. We've already seen Polymarket announcing the parent company of the NYSE made a $2 billion strategic investment at a $9 billion post-money valuation into Polymarket. So that's an example of a blockchain protocol which has taken off. And I think a lot of the lower caps in prediction markets haven't really had their time in the sun yet. Now, there are a few interesting ones. I remember we called Flipper in the Discord. This one did really well. I think it's too high risk now to get into because the narrative has dried up. But there aren't that many options, and there's lots of infrastructure plays which are needed to power the prediction market economy, which I think will start rising to prominence over the coming weeks. I'm going to post or share a prediction market guide with you very, very shortly. The TLDR is I'm mostly still focused on, Polymarket if it gets a token, and also Kalshi. There's another one called Limitless. You can actually right now earn points on Cookie and Kaito in order to potentially get an airdrop. And then obviously there could be trading opportunities once those tokens actually launch. So those are the big ones. And then you also have the smaller ones where you can look to speculate in the ecosystem. I'm not buying any of these right now. Nothing has fully piqued my interest in this space right now for me to act, but it's definitely one I'm watching. And when the right thing comes across, I'll share it with you. And that's a sector that I think could be a very hot sector over the next few months. A lot of this stuff is just about understanding where could liquidity flow and then starting to reverse engineer from there. You can see on Cookie, which I use to track mindshare, a lot of the top, and this is how I kind of saw that this narrative was brewing, narratives right now are related, coins right now, are related to prediction markets. You can see Polymarket is trending here. You can see Kalshi's trending here. A lot of these are now starting to trend because that is the hot narrative in the market at the moment. The next narrative, which I think you should be paying attention to, is AI. And as a subsector of AI, I think robotics. So AI and robotics, it's always there. It's been a big narrative in crypto for quite some time. But I do think, given the fact that Tau is heading into the halving and actually looks quite strong, it had a breakout and it's looking like it wants to make a key reclaim right now, combined with the fact that, a lot of the old AI tech, I feel like, in January was very experimental. Like we had the AI agent run, we had the first iteration of these agents launching in the market. A lot of them failed, but what it did show us was that it was possible to create interesting infrastructure using AI, but it was very early. I think now, heading into the end of the year, the tech is significantly better, And a lot of the most exciting projects that I am meeting and my team's meeting, because we do lots of meetings, we meet lots of projects, we really try and understand what's being built right now in the space and what the most interesting stuff is right now in the space. A lot of it is AI. A lot of it is agent infrastructure. A lot of it is infrastructure for energy, which is obviously something that AI is actually lacking right now and is holding back even the biggest models in the world like ChatGPT. So I think not only this cycle, but also longer term, if you can throw darts at a few of the correct AI protocols and they nail their distribution, there is so much upside. And crypto is a very interesting vertical because it allows these products to bootstrap liquidity very quickly and have token incentive flywheels that enable them to scale a lot quicker. Like if you're a protocol with physical infrastructure, like I know Pinlink, for example, is actually building like data centers in the UAE. If you have a token and you have a flywheel and that gives you the ability to raise money to actually, build data centers, and then the data centers produce revenue, and that, props the token value up even more because you have buybacks, and then that allows you to buy back more of the token and then raise more money. And then you can have a DAT sitting on top as like a separate structure, which is buying the token, and that gets traditional interest. This is just an example of a flywheel based on something that I know. That's a very interesting business model. And then you have a tangible benefit to build on blockchain. 'Cause a lot of the question is like, why launch an agent on blockchain and why not just, launch an AI product? Well, the reality is going to market is a lot quicker if you launch on blockchain. And there's so much smart talent in San Francisco, so many builders we're meeting and speaking to that are all launching on blockchain for a reason, because they can bootstrap liquidity, they can market quicker, they can distribute a lot quicker, and they can incentive align a lot more efficiently. And that is one of the most exciting reasons to be focused on AI. So I condensed it down to a small watch list for you today. Obviously, BitTensor Tau I hold. Aethia, very interesting. They have a DAT as well. So that whole flywheel I used before with data centers, this is probably even more relevant for Aethia, given the fact that they are packaging together enterprise GPUs and they have a very interesting DAT mechanism. I'll give you a bit of alpha. The token got hit because the whole market had a big liquidation event and there was an unlock. I front ran a little bit early. I posted in my Discord that I cut some of my position on the bounce last week. I am looking to potentially re-enter soon because the token's low. If we hit 100K on Bitcoin and it goes lower, I think the risk reward on this will be quite good over the coming months. WorldCoin is one that I hold a bag of, as you guys know, but I would maybe look to add more. I think obviously being like the open AI investable proxy coin is quite a strong narrative. They also have a DAT coming. Near Protocol is worth looking into as one of the top AI layer ones. I know there's some stuff coming for them soon as well. So these are some of the majors to look at. And then there are also some low caps. Now keep in mind, a lot of these are very high risk, but I'm always keeping an eye on the AI protocols which are building cool stuff, which are either underrated or not launched yet. For example, Fraction AI, it's one that I invested in. It's not launched yet. It's backed by, I think, Spartan, some of the biggest VCs in the space. This one's very cool because it basically enables you to build, train, and compete with AI agents to earn rewards. Once again, going back to the point I was making before, I think the ability for you to do reward distribution, it just gives you an advantage in terms of building a flywheel, and is one of the reasons why you would, build in crypto and blockchain versus building in whatever backend infrastructure you want to use for these payouts that isn't blockchain. So Fraction AI is one that I'm looking at, hasn't launched yet, but it's on my watch list. Two riskier ones, but I think are worth noting. Inspect, this is a Tau subnet. They have a huge mining pool. Obviously Tau's been really hot, so I'm looking into some of the subnet plays. This one piqued my interest, but there are more. I took a position in this. And then also Coral. This is a newer one that I started to add to my portfolio. I've been adding slowly. I'd like a bigger dip so I can potentially add more. But Coral is in a very nice uptrend. So a lot of the other AI protocols and just smaller cap projects in general have been bleeding. I like the fact that the price action looks very strong on this one. Higher lows, higher highs for the most part. And they're a very cool team, fully doxed team. They did a big hackathon in New York recently, had some very impressive results. They beat a lot of the bigger models and they're building in crypto. So this is one that I found that I thought was really interesting and I wanted to bring it to your attention. But there are more. And if you really want to spend these next few weeks while the market is quiet researching this stuff, I think that is the way to go. Because, you can sit around and you can be like, I'm just waiting for something to happen. But you can actually take your future into your own hands, take your fate into your own hands, and really use this time to start researching. If you want a bit of a tip, pause the video and screenshot the screen right now, because this is my full 16-step watch list, or 16 things you can do watch list when the market is quiet, choppy or trending down. One other point that I'd like to add to end the video here, but it's an important point, is that when the market's quiet, something I also pay attention to is the ability to earn airdrops and earn yield. For example, one thing I'm doing right now is I'm putting my stables to work across a few protocols, but I wanted to highlight one today because of its airdrop earning potential, and that is Multiply. So this is also backed by huge backers, Pantera, Sequoia, Spartan as well. I had a chance to meet them in person. Very, very cool protocol. Basically enables you to earn yield on Bitcoin, gold, assets you previously couldn't earn yield on. Now there's a place for you to earn yield on. So I think it has huge institutional potential as well in the future. But in terms of me and what I'm doing, I think this is a good opportunity to A, earn yield on my stable coins. I think it's paying like 6% at the moment. But B, that percentage is going to be a lot higher if you factor in you actually earn crystals towards their airdrop, which is around 24.7% weighted in terms of the token allocation, just for staking your stable coins. So if you stake your stables, so you buy the X USDC token, as you can see, you not only earn the underlying yield on the stable coins, but then you also earn crystals at an effective 24.7% token allocation. So you can get a pretty nice airdrop when they do TGE. I think it's going to come within the next few months by earning crystals. And you can see a lot of the crystals still haven't been allocated yet in the market. So Multiply is one place that I am actively deploying my stable coins. And I'm also an earlier investor in this one because I think it'll do really well alongside some very, very heavy hitting VCs. Yield basis is another one. I'm just kind of starting to, well, not leak alpha right now. I want to share alpha with you, but yield basis I think is a bit undervalued. I'll actually show you the token. I think DeFi stuff that opens up new markets, and yield basis obviously does it through the curve pools, is extremely interesting. This launched very low at 280, but it's the number one place for Bitcoin yield right now. So I think at some point this will make a reversal, and you can chart it and wait for some relative strength. But once it starts to exhibit relative strength again, I think this becomes a pretty compelling buy. Potentially, it's a compelling buy right now. I'm not underwater because I got into the Legion sale, but I've round tripped a lot of my gains because I'm bullish on this, and I just didn't sell. Probably the best risk reward thing to do would have been sell on day one and then buy back in later. But what I'll probably do is buy some more to average down my overall position. But I think this one is a good one in terms of one with a live token, but obviously I'm doing the multiplier. Airdrop Farming as well. So there's a couple DeFi protocols I wanted to mention because there are opportunities in research, but then there are also passive opportunities in terms of airdrop farming. I think some of the perp DEX farming is interesting, but I feel like it's just so saturated at this point. I'm looking for things that aren't so saturated, and I think that's one of them. But yeah, that's pretty much the video. Gave a lot of info today, so let me know if you enjoyed in the comments below. We're going to start bringing back the comment giveaways as well. So just drop a comment, ask a question in the comments to qualify for that. And I'll see you in the next video. Remember to join the Telegram if you want updates when I'm not uploading there every single day. Basically like a mini newsletter to give you everything you need to know every day, plus voice messages from me when I have an update. So yeah, come join that. Link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a lovely rest of your day. Peace out.